everyone. I decided to make a layout, actually give the papers to the ladies attending the National Scrapbook Day here in Port Elizabeth on the 27th of January 2018. So I grabbed a green, beautiful, Simple Stories paper, a piece of paper from Fancy Pants, Nautical, half a sheet of craft, a few other little elements, flour, etc., and I put it into a pack for 80 ladies, and I decided that I will teach the class online. So I'm taking my green background and I am applying Prima Finnabar white crackle paste through a stencil. Now you'll see that I'm struggling a little bit here because there are some hard pieces in my crackle paint which I haven't used for about a year. Now crackle texture paint dries, so if you don't close your pots properly, it will make hard pieces inside, and this is what's happened to me. We all tend to buy lots of products, but we have to use it. You can see me picking out the hard pieces there, and I'm just showing you how it cracked inside my jar. I commit to using this more often. I've put that aside to dry, and now in the packs that the ladies got, they had brown flowers and cream flowers, and all I'm doing is I'm simply layering the little flowers on top of each other, piercing a hole through, and with the brads in the pack I'm adhering the little layers to each other. You can see there I've got a cream and a brown and then another cream and a brown, and I'm putting a little brad in and I'm just fluffing the flowers up. Here you can see that I'm cutting the back ends of the brads off with my Tim Holtz scissors. The reason I'm doing this is that some of the flowers are really small and the brads have long legs, and I don't want the legs to stick out from underneath my flowers. So they cut off really easily and you won't damage your scissors if you do that. So don't be scared of doing that. Now I'm applying some Tombow glue to the back of all the flowers, and I'm leaving this to become repositionable because I would really like to be able to move them if I'm not happy with where they are. In the packs were these interesting metallic plastic things, embellishments, but they have little strings with which they're attached to each other. The quickest and easiest way for me to get the pieces of string off is to just sand it off using a sanding block, because once you start cutting it's like almost never ending because you need really fine tipped scissors to cut it perfectly. So the sanding block works fine for me. I thought maybe I should trim the two pieces of paper a bit smaller because they are exactly 6 by 12. I think the craft was slightly bigger, and this one I think I'm cutting about 8.5 inches. There you can see how beautifully the crackle paste has started to crackle, and I'm just kind of getting a feel here of where I want to go with my page. This one I think I cut to about 9.5 or 10 inches. So that it can back my blue and my photo, be the little bed for the main feature, of course, which should always be your photos. You can see that I'm positioning and I'm not 100% sure where I want to go. I want my stencil work to show off, but I also want a good composition. That craft cardstock was just a bit too big, so I trimmed off just about 0.5 centimeter. I'm going to be doing some random stamping onto the page now, and I'm using VersaFine Smoky Grey. The reason I'm using the smoky grey and not the black is because I felt the black would be too harsh. I'm not using a stamping block because I just want this to be nice and soft and random, and also because the texture paste actually has texture, it won't stamp perfectly and then might just drive you crazy. Sorry, that's my email coming in. I'm using this, I think it's Hessian texture if you look at it properly. If you see what I'm doing, I'm just randomly stamping here and there some elements on the page, on the background. And you can see that I actually positioned my photo and my elements, but now I'm looking and I'm thinking that I'm hiding most of it. So I'm not quite happy. I promise you, I was looking at this and I thought, no, I'm not happy with this. There you can see I took a break and I decided that I'm going to have a portrait layout. I'm using my Prima distressing tool to distress the edges of my papers. You can use a pair of scissors or you can use a yarn cutter. That works really, really well. I recently acquired this tool, so I'm still getting used to it. I have a Tim Holtz distressing tool, which I love, but I simply cannot find it at the moment. Okay, so I'm happy with where I'm going to put my papers and my photo, and now it's time to apply the adhesive. I decided to take out my Aleene's tacky glue, but I haven't used it for a while, so it has a little thing in there. And you can see that to get that hard piece out, I literally have to take off the lid or the squeezing part and then squeeze with a pin from the back so that I can push that out. Otherwise, we keep on pushing the hard piece inside to our glue and it'll just keep coming out. I'm positioning my flowers. You can see that I'm fooling around with them. I'm moving some, taking them away, putting them back. I'm also putting those little elements, those plastic bling things, I do love them, in there. And I think I'm just going to move some of my flowers around because I'm not quite happy with all those green ones next to each other. And you can see there I'm trying to figure out if I should put another flower, and then I'm trying to get not all the brads with the same color next to each other. Sorry, I've got a little frog in my throat tonight. Eventually, I think I ended up being happy with it, but I felt I needed more stamping. What's nice about using the Aleene tacky glue that doesn't dry immediately like double-sided tape is that you still have some open time, so you can reposition and you can lift before it dries completely. Now I want to add some splatters to my layout. I'm using ground espresso distress ink that I'm misting with water, and I'm using a fan brush. Angerie was here from Australia, and she actually said to us that a fan brush does the best splats. So immediately I had to go out and buy a fan brush. I will be stocking them in the shop. It works fabulously. So I have to leave that to dry now. I found a title in my drawer that says "Love This," and I'm using a finger dauber to ink it. It's really hard sometimes if you press the ink directly because you tend to hurt your chipboard, but if you use a finger dauber, you've just got a little bit more control. I felt I needed something glittery on my title, so I simply squeezed some stickles out and I'm just rubbing it onto my title using my best tool, my finger. You can add as little or as much as you want. I simply just added a little bit, and now I'm just quickly drying it with the heat gun. Don't apply too much heat on your cutting mat because it will wobble, okay, and we don't want it to wobble. Putting some Tombow glue at the back so that it becomes repositionable, and now I'm moving on to the string that was in the kit. Remember that little piece that I cut off from the craft cardstock? Now I'm simply taking a 6mm double-sided tape, putting it on the one side, pulling it off, and I'm wrapping the string around this piece just to create a fun element on my page. You can see I didn't have enough string to cover the whole thing, but I didn't want a long one like that in any case. I'm neatening or tidying up the ends here. I'm going to be putting some Tombow on the back, leave it to become repositionable, and then I will apply it to the project. So what I'm doing here, I've put my title on. My video actually stopped recording for a while, but you can see that I've put that piece with the string there, and I'm simply adding champagne mist all-purpose ink over my title because I wanted to give it a shimmer. I've also added some art stones that I'm painting now. I simply applied those using soft gel or any gel medium and putting the little art stones on, and now I'm coloring them. You can use any medium to color the art stones because they are already prepared to accept color. So I'm just dabbing some of my ground espresso distress ink that I've mixed with a little bit of water and a fine paintbrush. I am coloring the art stones. This really adds a fabulous effect to your project. It's really a small detail, but you know, it's in those little details I find sometimes that it makes a big difference. You know, I'm not a detailed scrapper, but I love the little details. Now I'm adding some sparks. It's also a Prima product, and it just adds a little bit of spark to your project. I think this one is called Mermaid something, and it's got a blue tint. So because the photo was taken at the beach, I thought it would be good to get some of the waves sparkle in there. I'm using my Lera Aquarelle graphite pencil now just to make a frame around the page. This pencil is water soluble. You can see I'm taking my water brush and I'm simply wetting that border that I created, and once it's dry it will have a fabulous watercolor effect. And that is basically it for the page. Really quick, really easy. I hope you enjoyed this class, and see you again.